welcome back to my channel. My name is Shamika. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are returning, hey friend, what's going on? So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to embroider on a basket. I did speak about this in one of my earlier videos because I was looking for some tips and some tricks on how to do a basket, but not just necessarily embroider a name on a basket. I wanted to take it up a notch, and so I ended up embroidering this basket for one of my customers. I think it turned out really cute, and I'm going to show you or give you some tips on how I was able to achieve this look. So first of all, what you're going to need in order to complete this project is you're going to need whatever blank you chose. I don't even remember where I got these baskets from. I got them last year, and I will have to look it up in my spreadsheet. Whatever design that you want to put on your basket, in order to achieve that look, I used my 8x9 mighty hoop, and the design was a 5x7. And then my font, this is one of these particular fonts that I got off of a different website. So that it doesn't necessarily come in inches. It comes in small, medium, large. So I'm just going to measure it so I can see what it is. And this font is like 1.5 inches. So it's 1.5 inch font on this basket. So going back, I used my 8x9 mighty hoop in a 5x7 5x7 design with 1.5 inch font and 1 sheet of tearaway stabilizer. Now normally when I use stabilizer, especially tearaway, I typically like to use 2 sheets. But what I noticed is that when I use 2 sheets of stabilizer, I always have a hard time getting my this thingamajiggy. What is it called? It's called the stabilizer, I don't remember. Stabilizer holder. It holds your stabilizer in place on the bottom part of the mighty hoop until you can get the top part on. So I always have a hard time. Sorry, the other embroidery machine just stopped. I always have a hard time getting the holder on when I use 2 sheets of stabilizer. So I was like, okay, well, let me just use 1 sheet of stabilizer and see how it works. So to me, I feel like you can get away with just using 1 sheet of stabilizer for this project. I'm going to zoom in close. You can see that it stitched out really nicely. I actually completed this project on my 12 needle Happy Voyager. And once you have your design, I created my design in Embrilliance. And then once I created my design, I uploaded it to my machine. But before I hooped everything, one of the things I did first was I tried to find the center of my basket. So to find the center of my basket, I took where the 2 handles are and I meshed up the side seams. And I clipped that with a sewing clip. And then these 2 points right here that's left would be technically the centers of my basket, right? Because this is the sides. So this will be the front and the back. So I then, from there, take a stick pin and I slide that stick pin in the top. Hopefully you can see it. Probably not. I don't know which way is going to be the best way to show you. In the top of my basket to mark the center of my basket. So that way, and that pin is kind of sticking out a little bit, so I'm just going to redo it again because I normally do it to where it's not sticking out to where it can hurt me, because I'm known for sticking myself with stick pins. There we go. So then once I do that, I take my sewing clip off And I now have the center of the front of my basket. My pin is a little crooked based on how I stuck it in, but of course you want to try to stick your stick pin in straight. So as you see, I have my stick pin, and you can almost kind of see the crease inside the basket where I had took my two sides and pressed it together. It actually made a crease, and my stick pin is right in the center of that crease. So when I line my mighty hoop in, I'll place my mighty hoop in the basket. I kind of line up the center of my mighty hoop, the top. The top of my mighty hoop, this hole, I consider that as the center. I line my stick pin up. Oh, it looks shiny. I line my stick pin up with the hole of my mighty hoop. And then I will go ahead and I guess show you how I hoop my my basket. So I'm just gonna go over here to the cutting table. Okay, whew, that took a minute because I gotta find something that can hold my phone, that's a tripod, but that's not heavy and bulky, because currently what I have around here, I don't, hopefully you can see me. What I have around here, I don't be trying to move around. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bottom hoop down. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut my sheet of tearaway for my hoop. And I'm going to place my stabilizer holder, because you see my stabilizer comes on the roll. This was stabilizer that I received when I purchased my Persona locally for someone. So she gave me a bunch of stabilizers, so I haven't had to buy stabilizer in a while. Now as you see, I have noticed that when I cut it right side up, it curves, but when I flip it the other way down, it kind of stays flat. But I'm still going to go ahead and put my stabilizer holder on top to hold my stabilizer in place for when I hoop my basket. And it is almost midnight here, so I know my husband's going to come in here in a minute and tell me I need to go to bed, because I'm normally done by 10. But I'm kind of behind. And even though I only got one sheet of stabilizer, I always struggle getting this thing on all the way. So we have the holder in place. Backing holder is what it's called. We have the backing holder in place, and I'm just pulling it to get it a little tight. Because you know you want your stabilizer kind of taut on your hoop, but. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab my basket. And of course, when you're using a mighty hoop, you're going to lose some sewing feel. Probably about, I don't know, what's that, about 2 inches? Where's my ruler? Probably about 2 inches, just because, or 1.5 inches, just because the tab that's at the bottom of the mighty hoop, and that's the way you're supposed to use the mighty hoop. Now, before I really learned how to use my mighty hoops, I was doing it upside down, and I didn't break anything. I'm just saying. But don't do that, because that's not the right way to use your mighty hoop. So now I'm just going to slide my hoop in my basket. And you know how the baskets come folded like this? My hoop is in the front part of this flap. The bottom flap is still free, and my hoop is not in that. And then typically what I do is to make sure, get your handle out the way, to make sure that my hoop is kind of even and centered. I take my basket and I flatten it out as much as I can, and then I use my fingers to measure. So I know if I can have, and for me, it's about 3 fingers on each side. If I have about 3 fingers on each side, then I know I have it pretty much centered how I want it. It's even spacing on both sides. And so now I'm just going to take the top of my mitre hoop. I still haven't taken my pin out yet. And I'm looking at it and it's just a tad bit off center. So I'm just re-measuring to make sure it's where I want it. I might just slide it over. I slid it over just a smidge. Okay. Now I'm going to take my mitre hoop and I'm just going to place it nicely on top. And I'm going to pull the top of my basket as I press my mitre hoop in place. A lot of people snap their mitre hoops in place, and I don't. I just don't, because when my technician came and was working on my machine, he just told me I didn't have to do that, and so I just haven't since. So now that I have my mitre hoop in place, I'm going to go ahead and remove my stick pin, or if you want to leave it in place, you can leave it in place. So that way when you are hooping, as a matter of fact, I am going to leave it in place. When you put it on the machine to trace, you'll be able to see where you want the center of your design to actually fall. Or you can go ahead and just mark it with a pen or water-soluble marker or pen if you have one. I'm just going to leave my stick pin in place, and then I'll just, after I trace, I'll take it out. But I'm going to go ahead and sit my basket up, and I'm just going to remove my backing holder. So once I remove my backing holder, the next thing that I do before taking it into the embroidery machine is I clip my handle to the back of my basket just to make sure that it does not get in the way while I'm embroidering on the machine. So I just use my sewing clip and I just pin the handle to the back of the basket just to make sure it doesn't get in the way. And then this is the inside of the basket. As you see, this back flap is not hooped. So technically when I put it on the machine, I can pop the whole bottom out. So that is how I hoop my basket. And then we're going to take it over to the machine for tracing and to start the embroidery process. One of the things that I noticed when doing these baskets is I want to try to get as close to the bottom as I can, because if I don't, then what's going to end up happening is my design is going to have, I'm not going to have a whole lot of space at the top. So I try to get down as far as I can on the basket without hitting the hoop. So that's where your trace is going to come into place. So I'm going to say trace, you know, the first time, trace again, trace 3 times, trace as many times as you need to make sure that you don't hit the bottom or don't hit your hoop, but you want to get as close to the bottom as you can, so that way your design kind of looks proportionate on your basket. Now, there is a way that you can avoid that, and as you see, once I fluff it out, I stand it up. It's pretty good positioning. I could have brought it down more, but I cannot because of my mitre hoop. And when I'm doing embroidery, if I can use a mitre hoop, I will. Now, there is a way that could have been avoided. I could have avoided that if I would have used my Durkee frame or fast frames, whichever one you have. But I personally don't care for sticky stabilizer. I just don't like it. But of course, with your, this is an 8x8 Durkee easy frame. With this, you're able to get closer to the bottom of the basket because this part of the frame is maybe a 1/2 inch. Yeah, it's only a 1/2 inch. So you're literally going to gain an inch more of sewing space if you use your Durkee frame versus your mighty hoop. So again, that's all just going to be preference on what you prefer to use. Again, I like mighty hoops because I don't really like dealing with the sticky stabilizer and trying to take it off the back. The the back of the basket. I'd rather just peel the tearaway off and go from there. So again, you do have two options. So I guess I should have said that in the beginning of my video. You can use your 8x8 Durkee frame or easy frame. Now don't get me wrong, I will use these. I will use them. But they're not my first choice. Or your 8x9 mighty hoop if you have an 8x9 mighty hoop. Because what I was trying to do is go as big as I could on these baskets. To be honest with you, I probably can fit my 10x10 in here. Maybe. And that would allow me to go even wider on the basket. But I feel like the 5x7, 8x8 is a good design. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go over to the embroidery machine. I am doing these on my multi-needle just because I don't feel like changing all these thread colors. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll be like 6 thread color changes, and I don't want to do that by hand. So I'm going to go ahead and move on over to the multi-needle. I'm not going to show me tracing on camera. I don't have a laser on my multi-needle, so it wouldn't be helpful for you guys anyway. Just because I don't have a laser, I've just used it enough to where I know how to eyeball it, and I just drop my needle manually to see if it's going to hit the hoop or not. Of course, on most multi-needles, on some of them, excluding the brothers, you have a laser light that's going to kind of show you where it's going to stitch. And some of the newer brothers, you actually have a camera that'll show you where it's going to stitch or where you want to drop your needle. I'm not familiar with that because my Persona doesn't have that functionality. But on the Happy Machine, there's no laser. So it's literally just going to stitch the outside of my design. So I'm just looking to make sure that I'm not going to hit my hoop. Because I don't have my mighty hoops programmed in it. It's programmed on the biggest hoop, which is a 12x12 hoop. And so anything that's underneath that, I just always trace and then go from there. So I'm not going to show that on camera, but when I do come back, you will see me. I will show you all the stitching process. So I will show a little bit of that, and then once it's completed, because that's going to take like a few minutes, then I will come back and I will show you the finished product.